And I always wanted to make sure that I came back home and ran for office in my hometown, because I cared the most about where I lived, where I was from. And as much as I would have loved doing it anywhere, it just doesn't mean as much to me if it's not where I'm from and the people that help raise me. And so I looked at the public service aspect of it, which was really cool, and helping out the people that I grew up with that helped me raise me in a sense. And then also I just enjoyed the policy. I became kind of wonky on policy and politics and things like that, and it kind of grew more and more. And then
living and breathing La Vida Boa. Welcome to the Boa Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Demora, alongside host Nick Colhay. It's been a while, but here we are, back again.
What's up, everybody? I'm your co-host, Nick Colhay. Welcome back, TBL. Episode number 30. Ready to do this, Steve?
Gonna try.
Let's go. Well, this is going to be confusing today, ladies and gentlemen, because our guest is no other than Steve Harding. He spells it with a PH, which is completely wrong, but we are both Stevens. So we'll try to keep order, keep sense of that. But good to have you. And I'd been begging you to come on, and finally you came on.
Well, this is a great opportunity. And my mother always told me that the PH is the correct way to spell it. So,
well, I'm not going to argue with your mother. She's definitely right.
She's probably not, but it's okay. I'll take it.
We were, I think my parents, they were just Portuguese immigrants. They said, let's keep it short and sweet, and went with just the V.
V is traditional. V is traditional, at least amongst American spelling. But it led to, jokes you get when you're 8 years old of Stephanie and.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So, and I even have some clients that, for whatever reason, call me Steph for short, because they think it's almost like a Steve. So I'll get like an email saying, "Hi, Steph, STPH."
That's interesting.
So I've gotten that recently, like amongst a few clients. So
people are particular sometimes with how they want their name said. I've kind of never really worried about that.
Yeah.
But like Stephon Curry, the basketball player, I mean, I think Nike lost them because the person that was pitching them didn't even know his real name, which is
that's one of my pet peeves is the telemarketer call of, "Hi, I'm looking to speak with Stephen Harding."
Oh man, see? So
yeah,
if I see that name spelled, I don't ever think to say it like that.
No one can really mess Nick up.
Well, Nick is
yeah. Nicholas.
But so a lot of coincidences here today. So the host and the guest have similar names. Episode 30, you represent
State Senator of the 30th District, yeah.
And having the pleasure of having some conversations, prior to us coming on live, or not live, but recording, but certainly we've known each other for some time. Work, personal, a lot of different ways. But we struggle with some of the same things.
Absolutely.
We benefit with some of the things we do. It's going to be an interesting conversation, Nick, and you're going to be able to hopefully help us out.
I'm going to help you out?
I think so, because you've helped me out, and some of the things that we struggle with, I think is right in your wheelhouse with the weight and dealing with stress and all that stuff. I
came on today to get advice from you.
All right. I'm ready. I'm game. Let's go.
Ready to rip it?
You guys, you have very stressful jobs. I say that because you each kind of have two very professional jobs, so it comes with the territory, right?
It does, but it's I don't know. There's a lot of days, and I'm sure Steve, you have this, where you step away and you're like, I could do something just so much different right now in my life. Like when something is stressful at work, things happen with a particular real estate transaction, and there's all this money at stake, or there's a mortgage contingency that comes up, and there's the deposit at stake, and all these high stress situations. Then obviously, the politics of it all that we're both involved with in different ways, and the elections and the high stakes that are involved with that, and the scrutiny and the public eye that's placed on you. I mean, it's the career paths that I think both Steve and I have chosen to go on are not really conducive to like nice, stressless family life. It just, and I do wonder, like, what is it like? What is it like to have maybe just one job 9 to 5. My sister, for example, and there's high stress in what she does too. She's a prosecutor in Danbury. But, at the end of the day, she's a state employee, 9 to 5 type of employee, despite the fact that when she's on trial, sometimes obviously the hours get bumped up, the stress gets bumped up. For the most part, though, it's a totally different. It's a W-2. You get a paycheck coming in every single week. Maybe if you work for, a big company, I have a few friends that work at Cardis around here. That's a pretty popular company where a lot of folks work. And one job, W-2, for the most part, 9 to 5. And I do kind of look back sometimes and go, am I doing something wrong here? Like, what am I doing? Why did I go down this path? As much as I love it in some ways, there's a lot to be said for, at least from a stress, mental health perspective of one particular job that doesn't have as much stress. But then again, I don't know. My dad, I always express this to my father, and for years, my dad worked right down the road at Scholastic, was Grow Leaguer before that, worked in the financial department, very much W-2, 9 to 5 type of employee. And he said, you know what? You could do what I did, and you're going to have a boss breathing down your neck. Why isn't this? Why you have to file this? Why isn't that right? That's wrong. This is wrong. Looking to get you fired, looking to get you laid off. There's stress in everything, right? And sometimes it's relative, right? We always think we have more than others. We probably do. Right. What we do, but I guess you can find stress in everything. I think a lot of it is the mindset.
I think you're right. I think people can find stress in even situations that aren't stressful, right? But I mean, I do think that your career and my career do come with a lot of stress because we have the stress of mistakes, being accountable for, significant things that can go wrong in transactions. We have the stress of our clients, and all these things can get exacerbated when, your livelihood is on the line. And I think there's no doubt that as a profession that lawyers have a very difficult time dealing with stress. And I think there's, problems with drinking and there's, suicide. And I'm saying
substance abuse.
These things, with soldiers, I mean, different professions, but there is a reason for that. And I think it for the most part, I think attorneys are under a lot of stress. So it's a real concern. And I think it's something that you and I deal with that is significant and it's real. And these conversations are important. One, because other attorneys, other people can, listen and feel like, all right, I'm not the only one that feels this way. It's okay to feel that way. And then two, sometimes maybe we can give them some solutions to it. Although I don't think necessarily we're going to do that.
Venting,
yeah. But I think that ironically, you kind of deal with some of the stress the same way I do, right? I've always fluctuated with weight and trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And you said something earlier, I think it was before we went on camera, that you said that it's hard for you to find balance. It's like
100%. When
you're doing campaigning, for instance, you're always fighting with your weight, right?
Right. So it's especially during campaign time, I don't know what it is, but I remain almost singularly focused on that and then what I have to do at my job. And for whatever reason, I can't balance a healthy lifestyle in that third peg during the campaign season. It's just impossible for me. And we were talking about, a little bit beforehand about if you I'll look at my pictures on my social media page for my political campaigns on Facebook, and I'll start out in, the spring and the summer and being kind of average of where my weight usually is. And then slowly but surely that frame gets bigger and bigger and bigger by the time October and November roll around. And I think I stress eat. And, one of the things about, what we do, particularly with Steve and myself with the law office, it's just us, right? And so there's not a lot of support staff around. I have an offsite paralegal, and other than that, it's just me at the law office. So when it comes down to putting a closing package together or FedExing stuff out or sending out emails or whatever, if we don't do it, it's not going to get done. So you go back into the office, no matter what time of night it is, no matter where you may have been previously, during the evening or during the day, and you go back in. You just have to do it. And one of the things that I find hard during campaign season is I've tried to stop, and I'm going to try to stop this upcoming campaign season, which is about a year away now, or a little bit more, is I'll go to an event, because you go to a lot of events, as you know, during campaign season at night, and then I go back into the office, and then what I always would tell myself is, okay, well, I'll eat something after I'm done. And there's nothing unhealthier than 11 o'clock at night, looking up on or the Chinese place is open, or I can get Wendy's or Burger King. And, I'm going home, bringing home like 2 Baconators.
I don't even know what that is.
It's delicious. It is good. A large thing of fries, a large Coke, a Frosty, and I'm eating this the whole time, going like, I should not be eating this. Like, what am I doing? It's 11 o'clock at night. I've already probably eaten things that are unhealthy throughout the day, but it was it would keep me going. Of okay, well, when I'm hungry, but you know what? Tonight, when I'm done doing all this stuff at work, I'm going to go get food. And so what I've been good at, I would say, for the past, since the new year, and now the campaign is over, obviously, is I'm able to eat before I go into the office, no matter what that may be, at the house. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it isn't. But that's it. I don't eat after I go to work. And it's my digestive cycle has had to get used to it, because I'm now getting hungry at 11 o'clock, going, where's my Baconator and fries? And so transitioning from that, and then on top of that is I got to a point for years, I would say, even beyond campaign season. And Nick, we've talked about this because we've done some running together, where I was like, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to exercise. And with our schedules, it's easy to tell yourself that, because you're running back and forth to the office. You're doing campaign stuff, right? And so with our schedules, it's so easy to mentally tell yourself, well, other people run, other people work out, but if I just don't have the time for that. And I would just always chalk it up to that. And now that I'm, turning a new leaf, hopefully that continues, I'm now finding the time, and I realize that, wow, there is time. I can do it. It's a little bit of a crunch, and sometimes it might only be 20 minutes on the elliptical or 20 minutes on the treadmill, but it's better than doing nothing, right? So that's, it's a whole different thing, and I can go into a whole other thing too, is, at one point in my life, I was like you, Nick, when I was in law school, and I went to law school full time. I had no other job. I was fortunate enough in my life to have that happen. So I was a full-time law student, and I would go to class, go to the library, prepare my notes and stuff like that, review what I had learned in the lecture stuff, and then go in and run for an hour on the treadmill. I'd run 7-8 miles like that, and then go home, eat dinner, and then do it all over again the next day. And the hard part for me is now understanding that I cannot run 8 miles in an hour. I'm just not going to be able to do that. So I would get on the treadmill, put it to 8.0, and I would get about a quarter mile in before I was falling off the treadmill. Understanding it's okay to have it at 6.0 and do it for 20 minutes and be okay with that. That's another hard thing too, is that mindset of thinking I have to be what I was a decade ago, and just understanding that no, I'm not that. And it's perfectly okay, because sometimes I think people get discouraged from going to the gym because of that.
Yeah, the all or nothing mentality.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
I
a
used to
huge
be.
issue.
Right.
It's
I used to
huge.
be this. Yeah.
Especially guys in our age range. Yeah. Nothing I'm doing now is even close to what I did 10 years ago. Right. I mean, give or take a few things, but you're right. That mentality is going in. How can I get the most out of it right now? Because 10 years ago, no kids, barely any responsibilities.
None.
So you could kill it in the gym.
Right.
And now family, wife, kids, 2 jobs. Yeah. How are you going to get the most out of the time you do spend in the gym?
Right. I think that's the problem with guys that are, are similar circumstances, our age is it's, you become like a juggler. It's a balancing act, and then you drop balls off, right? For me, it's the working out ball, the eating healthy ball. During my campaign, which, knock on wood, everything worked out for the best. And I was successful, and I couldn't be happier for myself and my family. But what fell off was the podcast, which is something that we love doing. And, And, you know, we always talk about, especially Nick talks about consistency. It's like staying consistent and having this, having more structure and balance and making sure you're able to do all these things that you love to do. And then finally, you know, sometimes you fall off the treadmill, right? And then you got to get right back on it. And that's, you know, us here today. This is, even though we're going to have a podcast release prior to this, this is episode 30. It's going to be a podcast that, Nick, you were saying, how long since our last podcast?
Close to a year. Which
is, like, to me, sad hearing that.
Don't know where the time went.
Yeah. And it's just, we, you know, as a solo practitioner, as someone that, you know, is involved politically, and me, so I'm as a probate judge, it's still political. It's not political, but to get elected, obviously, is political. It consumes so much time. And the other thing too is when we're going to get into family,
right?
And there's so many things I want to talk to you about, because it's like I feel like I'm talking to myself. What I didn't realize. And Nick can probably relate to this when he does his runs for his daughter, and that is a positive thing, bringing the family and involving everything. What as politicians are running for elected office, like what I didn't realize, and maybe I would love to hear your perspective, is when I won, only after was I relieved when I realized how invested your wife and your kids get in the campaign, like. Yeah. You think you're just putting yourself out there, you know, and that's fine. I put myself out there. If I was going to lose, you know, I was, you know, fine with that. And I have my own career. This was definitely something I wanted to do and be, and I thought something I would be good at.
Right.
But, you know, you're prepared to lose and you're prepared to deal with the consequences. Not everyone wants to run for office because, one, it's, especially nowadays, it can be, you know,
high scrutiny on your public life. And
right. And then it can affect you professionally and, you know, also, well, here we are on different sides, and you know, there's hope for us yet, right? Here we are, and we always have been, you know,
very amicable,
exactly, friendly, professionally, like in every aspect. Thankfully, but you really put your family out there. I mean, I remember my kids holding signs the day of, and then finally the morning waking up. I didn't know even in the morning for sure that I had won, but seeing it in their face, only then that morning, Steve, did I realize that. Wow, they were as invested as I was, if not more.
Yeah.
And shame on me for not realizing, you know, how much that, although, you know, it is what it is.
Right.
But I really never thought of that I was putting them.
You get bogged so down in the minutia of the campaigns. And it's so refreshing, that perspective you give, because you're actually opening my eyes up to it too. And I haven't really even reflected on the impact, you know, this last election at least has had on my family. Now, this is the first election in which my oldest, who's now 4, he'll be 5 in the summer, kind of had an idea vaguely of what was going on. He thought it was a physical running race. I had to explain to him, you know, he kept on telling me, are you training? He calls my dad Pa, his grandpa, and he said, are you and Pa going to go to the gym? And did Pa show you how to run fast? And I had to keep on explaining to him, Bud, it's like, no, it's called the race, but it's something different. You got to get most people to vote for you. And one of the cutest things was on election day, he comes in with me, I bubble, you know, my name in, and then we go over to the tabulator, put the thing in the machine. And I said, oh, we just voted, buddy. And he was all excited. And we're walking out, and he turns to me and goes, did you win? You know, he wanted instantaneous results, just like I did that day, trust me. I go, no, buddy, you don't fight. But you know what? There was a nice guy behind me to show that there's a lot of good people out there. There was a nice guy behind me. I don't know if this guy voted for me or not, but he heard my son say that, realized who I was and what I was running for, and said to my son, he goes, don't worry, your dad's going to win. And
that's
it was that made that even more than winning that night, you know, made seeing he put a big smile on his face. And the next morning, the most exciting thing about winning was waking him up and saying, hey, buddy, I won. And he went, you know, I don't think he still realized what it was. He said is Harding, you know, he called the campaign Harding for Senate. I think he thought my dad was running with me in some capacity, but regardless of what he understood, to your point, what you just said kind of made me reflect on the family, how invested the family has to be. My wife is very apolitical. She's a teacher, teaches in the Milford. And for that reason alone, and for other reasons.
Oh no, my wife was a teacher, second grade teacher too. This is getting very weird.
Elementary school teacher, yeah. She's a reading specialist at Sarah Noble in New Milford. So this is oddly like twins in terms of how our lives. But
unfortunately, Steve's a Cowboy fan.
Yeah.
Though.
Oh, there we go. That's why I brought this to represent. But
you're a Giants fan.
You get 2-1. You're outnumbered.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered.
But it's my wife is apolitical, and she doesn't. It's a nice break because she does not want to talk about politics in the house. And some people are like, "Oh, that's got to be hard," but it's actually really easy because it's all day I deal with it from particularly during campaign season, from the moment you wake up to the moment that you, at least for me, walk back into the house after a long day, it's politics. People are calling you, you're looking on stuff on social media, you're posting things, you're planning out what you're going to do for the weekend for political events or things like that. And it is refreshing to walk back in the house and know, I'm not going to discuss it. There's nothing for me to discuss. Even if it's juicy, even if it's important politically, I can't discuss it in the house. And it's to have that break is really actually is for me mentally healthy. But it's funny behind the, I don't want to say bravado, it's probably not the right word, but behind that demeanor in terms of her not wanting to talk about it, I could tell she cares, obviously. Yeah. And she's just as much emotionally invested in it as we are. She just doesn't show it the same way that others would or we do. So you saying that has made me reflect because you're exactly right. It's the family involvement and almost, I almost wanted to win even obviously because you want the job and you feel like you do a great job doing it. But also, I want to win for them, for my family too. You know, and because they're so emotionally invested. You don't realize it until you think about it. And it was, just saying that made me reflect. So. Yeah,
you're like a team. It's just like we're a team here, and we're working towards the same end. And we talk about as a community, people need each other, and I think one of the main reasons why we do this is because we know. I mean. You're a successful person, all right? You're a winner. You're a winner politically. You have a good career. You have a great name. Very great. You have a fantastic name. Well, except the spelling. But we struggle with stuff, right? We're human beings, and we all, we can learn from each other. And we have all these fascinating conversations, and we never know where they're going to go. But in the end, I think we always get right the perspective of what you're doing right, what you need to improve on, some of the hurdles or struggles you've had, and then what is your vision of a good life. And I think when we're having these conversations, not only are we opening up our own eyes through the conversation, like, I never thought of that. And some of the things you're saying opens up my eyes. And when Nick brings points, like we're constantly learning and trying to just become better. And I think this is a great venue for us to become better. And it's a great venue for other people to listen to and learn from mistakes, successes of others, from people's journey. It's like, tell me your story. That's what the Boa Life is about. Like, tell me your story. I want to hear about your life, whether it's good, great, getting there, work in progress. I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's, why I love doing this.
So one question, speaking of that, just to kind of bounce ideas, but, obviously, Steve, you have a very similar, we've talked about this, type of career and career path and everything else. The one thing that I struggled with this past summer, because I had the campaign, my life at, working at the law office and juggling all those hats and being a solo practitioner. So the office is me. And I often explain to people that, what are you going to do with your practice or whatever? And if I go into the hospital, God forbid, for 2 weeks, my practice ceases to exist. It's me. Right. And I think some people that are not in the profession don't, I think, really understand that. And so, this past summer, I spent one day on vacation And I got about 6 or 7 phone calls on my cell phones from different clients that wanted to close. I had one client that wanted to close on the day that I was going on vacation, and I finally just told him straight, like, look, this is the one day I promised my family all year long. I'm not closed. I don't care how important it is to you. I get it's important, and I shouldn't say I don't care. I care, but I there's no way I can cancel on them. That's just unfair to them. And the person did, to their credit, understood. So I guess the question to you is what do you do in terms of vacation? Because my wife is already talking to me about we want to go down to Cape May again. We went on a weekend trip. You know, we left on Sunday and stayed. My wife and kids stayed down there with my parents till late Wednesday night. But I spent Sunday and Monday, and then Tuesday morning, 5 a.m. I left to come back up here to do a closing, and I felt terrible doing it. So what's your experience been with that? Because I want to take some of your advice.
So I'm the best guy to ask this right now. Yeah. I'm going to tell you why, because I've been asking that question for years now, because it's almost impossible to do when you own your own practice to try to schedule something, because usually the buck stops here. Right. But you just said it. It's like a mindset. You alluded to it. Like tomorrow we could die, and no one can take over. Well, that's just it. Tomorrow we can die. And you know what? They're going to just go somewhere else or do something else and figure it all out. I think I haven't been able to figure that out for many years. And then you get to a point where you just have to do it. Yeah. I scheduled a trip in July for the first time. I'm going to bring my family to Portugal. I haven't been there in 20 something years. My kids have never been there. And I'm going to do it. And It is what it is, and you got to deal with the consequences. I think often we're stuck in this mindset that, if we leave, we're going to lose a client, and then everything's going to.
Correct.
And I think you have to look at it from the other point of view. It's your wife who stands by you. Right. My wife, just like your wife, is the rock. Supporting my kids. I've got to give them my time too. They deserve my time, just like my clients do, and all that. So. I'm preaching here, but I'm like you. I don't practice what I preach. I haven't done it. I'm trying to shift so that I do that, because it's like finding a balance. You have to find a balance right now. If you haven't been on a vacation, my buddy Larry Pereira, Baker Law Firm.
Of course I know Larry. Yeah.
Same conversation. Well, he's away right now. He emailed me this morning because we had a deal together. And I thought, you son of a gun, you didn't go. I knew you weren't going to go, but he did go, and it's like, you just got to just do it. Life is too short. Right. Anything can happen. And you gotta say, listen, just like we didn't do this podcast for a while, but eventually I'm like, we have to do this again. I love doing this. Why aren't we doing this? Because it's gotten pushed down because of, multiple reasons. Like, no, we're going to do it. And it's like working out, right? It's like, if I can't run 7 miles, why would I do anything? I'm too busy. I'm a lawyer. Like I've done the same stuff, but it's like, no, you wake up and you go walk a mile. The next day, walk a mile and a half. Like, just do it. Like, there's time. There's time for this stuff, right? What time are you getting up to work out, Nick?
4:30.
Do you really?
Yeah, 4:30. He doesn't make excuses because he's up doing it.
Do you go to the gym or do you go downstairs? Do you have stuff at home?
Both. Okay. I have a gym and a home gym.
Do you use the home gym at 4:30?
Yeah.
Mostly. See, I get yelled at by my wife because then she hears me downstairs.
Waking people up?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Well, I'm like clonking, because I run like this. So, if I walk down to 4:30, half the neighborhood's awake because,
So at least half the year you can get out on the road.
Yeah, I usually what I'll do is my new schedule is I will on Tuesdays and Thursdays my kids go to daycare. So, Tuesday mornings and daycare opens around 7. And I'll get there. I don't like to be the first person there. I like to give them time to get settled. So I usually around 7:15, 7:20, I bring the kids over to daycare. And that usually gives me about an hour and a half because I like to be in a little before 9 to the office. And nothing in Hartford starts up usually like 10, which is really good. So I get them dropped off at 7:15. I go over to I join the Y in Brookfield because it's convenient for me, and I just go run there and do my 30-minute run or whatever, and then shower. But I never. the one pet peeve I've learned now that I'm trying to get healthy again and working out is I never feel like comfortable when I change in the locker room and get like showered in the locker room. Like I always feel like the suit I bring is like wrinkled, that there's stuff on it. Like I can't break the sweat. Like, I started to sweat and I'm still drenched and I can feel like even today I put a shirt and tie on and I feel like all sweaty and I'm like, I use the towel, I use the shower, like wiping myself. I mean, so but that stuff I can get over, but that's what I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then Mondays and Wednesday nights now, Monday and Wednesdays, my in-laws are both retired teachers. So they come and watch the kids on Mondays and Wednesdays. And, usually those days I try to do it at nighttime, after, I'll go to the office, I'll help put the kids down to bed, or they go to bed around 7:30 and then go back to the office, work for an hour and then try to get in like 30 minutes and then head home. That's my new thing. Instead of Wendy's, I'm trying to go to the Y.
It's all sacrifice. I mean, you touched on it earlier. Do you, are you going to get the workout in or are you giving the excuse like I don't have time?
Yeah, and that's the biggest battle is because it's just mentally tough. I am doing it as of now. I'm doing it, and we talked a little bit of precursor, about the diets, and I'm on the keto. I think I'm on keto. I don't even know. I love it. I call it keto. It's like no carbs. I just don't eat carbs, and there's all this stuff you're supposed to eat. I don't know if I'm eating it right, but we were talking about. Like, I had pork rinds and like cream cheese and stuff like that.
That's a new one. I'm going to have to look
at it. I love that.
Well, I love cream cheese and I love bagels, but I can't, obviously, if you're doing keto, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, believe it, do you know J.P. Straczynski is his name? He's married to Manuela Palmaris in Danbury. She ran for state rep. He was a state rep from Monroe.
Okay.
And he was on the keto diet when I was one of my first iterations of doing the keto diet about 4 or 5 years ago up in Hartford. And it was one of those late nights and I was on the keto, thinking I was on the keto diet, if I am or was or wasn't or whatever. And I was complaining. I was like, I can't, I gotta, eat something crunchy, right? Because there's nothing I can eat that's crunchy, that's keto friendly or whatever. And he goes, no, I'm on the keto diet. And I go, oh, no kidding. And he opens up the bag and he had this thing of pork rinds. And he's like, you eat these when you want something crunchy.
Makes sense. I don't know if I've ever had a pork rind.
It's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. I used to see him in the gas station, and they were always like interesting to me.
Funky looking.
It's like fried pork fat. And I was like, and for me, as unhealthy as I am, I'm like, I would love this. Because like fried pork fat, like what's more unhealthy than that? I was like,
you're gonna be skinny, we're gonna die multiple heart attacks.
So I was thinking, I said, this is right up my alley, and I used to always want to try it. And I think one time I actually bought a bag of them at the gas station, and I remember eating and be like, this is actually disgusting. Like, why am I eating this? And I forgot about it, and because I probably thought to myself, I'll never eat this again. Why did I eat this? Until JP, who was a state rep with me at the time. He was the one that's, I eat pork rinds. And I said, oh, yeah, I've seen those. And I think I've had those before. So now that's like if I feel like I want something crunchy, I'll buy, it says right on the thing, zero carbs.
Yeah.
So I think they know people that are on this keto diet that want something crunchy can buy it. But what's equally disgusting, and I bought it at the store, is they sell, like, if you go down the gluten-free aisle, because I actually have a gluten allergy on top of doing all this. If you go down the gluten-free aisle, it's gluten-free too, because again, it's like fried fat. It's not. There's no
no
there's no gluten to it or wheat to it or anything. So they make breadcrumbs out of this stuff.
Are you serious?
So it's like zero carbohydrate breadcrumbs, and I got that one time. I was like taking like chicken thighs and like dipping them in egg yolk and throwing like this chopped up pork rinds on top of it. I felt bad for my wife. I think one night I suckered into trying this. It's like, what are you doing to me?
At least you're exploring, Some people don't barely care at all. They never even try.
Yeah, I have found that's kind of the most successful for me. Because I have the gluten issue. That's one thing that I deal with my diet to begin with. If I'm trying to diet or not, I'm always gonna have that gluten allergy. And to answer your question, probably you're thinking, wait a minute, this guy's talking about eating Burger King, and he says he's got a gluten allergy, so I would take the bun off, and I would just eat the burger. It's probably not totally gluten-free, but as long as it's not right and smacking me in front of the face, I tell myself it's gluten-free. But yeah, no, I mean, I try a lot, but one thing that I have found, the only thing that seems to be successful is when I do the keto diet, I seem to drop weight. But
do you try the keto diet while you're in that stressful time of year? You're mentioning while campaigning,
and that's so
do you see the correlation that might be happening?
Yeah. What's that?
That you're dropping weight while you're not campaigning because you're on the diet.
Yeah.
And while you're campaigning, you're not even bothered trying to diet.
Well, I don't even, and that's the problem.
It might not be the stress, actually. It's just the fact that you're throwing all those calories in that your body's not responding well
That's a good point. No, there's no doubt. What the problem with me is it's a mental health thing of I don't care.
The stress triggers the eating and you don't care about it.
And the stress also puts me in a deeper unhealthy place in terms of I just don't care. Like I know I'm gaining weight. I know that I'm eating unhealthy. I know I'm off the keto diet and I'm eating burgers and fries.
It makes you feel better temporarily.
For that 5 minutes that you're eating it, and then immediately after, you know what? Another thing I noticed, like immediately, I could not believe it. Maybe with your background, could tell me why this is, but my back will kill when I'm starting to gain weight. Like it, just putting any shirt on, even like particularly a tighter shirt. I feel like I'm sucking in my gut all day and my back. Like I'll go to bed and it's relieving to lay down because my back hurts so bad.
Well, just added weight to your stature in general.
Yeah.
It's going to cause all kinds of problems.
But it was the weirdest thing was like within 2 weeks of like being back healthy and dieting, even though I would step on the scale and like no weight was registering, and because I wasn't lifting, so it wasn't like I was gaining muscle and necessarily gaining muscle and losing fat, but like I didn't look like from the numbers I was losing weight, but the minute I started eating healthier, within like literally a week and a half, the back pain just went away.
It could have been nutritional in some sense.
Okay.
The weight and the type of food you're eating.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just something to do with, because like within a week, that's the one thing where I like almost tell myself, like even as stressful as the next campaign season might get, that just the back alone should be worth it to me to be like, I gotta stay. It could be
so debilitating.
Exactly. And now what I'm dealing with, we talked about this too, is my foot. Is I cannot figure out what the heck is wrong with my foot.
Yeah, maybe some blood work will do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe the pain is stress related too. You never know.
I halfway want it. So they thought I had gout. I got diagnosed with gout. Diagnosed. I went into an emergency room because I couldn't take the pain in my toe any longer. I was like, what happened to me? This thing was like the size of my couch. And I'm like laying there. It was 2:00 in the morning and I like limp into the bedroom because I was in so much pain I couldn't even sleep in my own bed. So I was like out in the living room. So I go in. This is back when I was on one of my healthier kicks, actually, about 3 years ago. So I walked in. I told my wife, it's 2:00 in the morning. I said, I'm going to Danbury Hospital. So I can't deal with this anymore. She's like, okay, best of luck. Do you want me to drive you? And I go, we had the kids at home. I don't want to wake my parents up at 2:00. So I was like, no, I can drive myself. And I walked in, and the guy's like, no, I think you have gout. And so he gave me some stuff that was supposed to break up the uric acid or whatever. Mm-hmm. And but part of the epidemic we have in this country, he prescribes me I forget, it was oxycodone or
sounds right.
I think he gave me Percocets like right there. I didn't take them, but he gave me pills right then and there. And then he's like, I'm going to give you something else to help break up the crystals, which is really what I wanted, because I want to hit the root of the problem here, and that's this so-called crystallization of the joints or whatever with this acid that's causing the gout. Well, I get to the pharmacy, they give me the uric acid, and they go, oh yeah, we have one other thing for you. I go, I wonder what that is. Oxycodone. So, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't ask for this. I'm in tons of pain, but I don't want to take this. And it's, part of the problem I think we have in this country, obviously, is that, it's so dangerous. We've run into it in the legal profession of,
It's a slippery slope, too.
It's so slippery. And folks that live, very normal, quote unquote, lives are doing very well for themselves. They have one back surgery, one debilitating injury. They get prescribed this stuff, and it is so easy to get addicted to it because it is sometimes the only thing that makes you feel better. And for that reason alone, I've seen it alone enough in my life where I just will not take. And as much as pain as I'm in, I'll just down some Advil. I just refuse to take that stuff. But except for the one time I had hernia surgery about 2 years ago, and
then you were all.
I was in a lot of pain, and I took it. But I tell you, you could see how people get addicted because you take it and you immediately become relaxed and like calm, and it's a totally different world. It's like taking the edge off.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's I like having these conversations because it opens up like people dealing with stuff, and like it's okay to like be vulnerable and have these kind of things, because sometimes I think also a problem in society is people don't want to kind of deal with some of the issues that they have. No. And like I said, in our profession, like trying to mitigate some of the stress, I feel like there's not a lot of stuff for us. I mean, there's help hotlines, and I think that we need to be better about maybe helping our colleagues with stuff like that. And I'm going to help you. It's the next time you want to plan a vacation, you got to talk to guys like me and a couple other colleagues, and especially the solos. We need to like look out for each other and try to help each other. Hey, you want to go away? I'll take care of whatever you're doing.
No, it's true. Yeah, that's the one thing is that there is a decent camaraderie amongst the local bar, particularly amongst solo practitioners. And the one thing about Danbury is it's predominantly the days of the Penny Paynes, and there's Collins and Hannafins, there's Kramer and Anderson and some of the firms, but they're not huge.
Right.
They're not Shipman, Goodwin, those huge law firms in Hartford. There is everyone kind of seems to know everybody, and we're all amicable and we all like each other for the most part and know each other pretty well. And to your point, there should be more collaboration, at least surrounding that of, hey, who's away this week? Hey, we'll help you out. We can all kind of chip in, and there should be a discussion about that.
I think we could be better about doing that as a community or as a bar, really being a better community for each other. I think I agree with you. I think we're a very good community, but there's room for improvement, I think.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what the whole BOA life's about, right? Having a better life, and you're certainly going to be able to have a better life if you have a support system in place. I mean, Nick knows, marrying a Portuguese family, it's you don't just marry one person, you're marrying a whole network of
every
people.
Single last one of them
come out of the woodwork like, whoa, this person's related to you? I didn't know that.
There's a lot of BOAs. I will say Danbury, the greater Danbury area is filled with BOAs in some capacity. Yeah, Larry's a BOA. Isn't Larry technically Carrera?
No, I don't think. His wife's got related to us in certain ways, but not from the BOA.
Okay.
But the Portuguese network is intertwined for sure.
Deep in Danbury.
Like, it is 6 degrees of separation. With the Portuguese, it's like 2.
So you marry into the whole. You don't marry just one person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what happened. I got introduced to family, and then more family, and sooner or later, it's like. You forget names. You don't know if they're related or not. It's tough.
My wife and I both have really small families, and so that I always find that the grass is always greener, right? So you always look at that, and it's like it's admirable to me. Like, oh wow, it's so cool to have so many cousins and such a big network and everything. And like my wife and I, I don't have any first cousins.
Really?
On either side, yeah. So I have 2 uncles. Neither of them had kids on my dad's side, and I have 2 aunts. Neither of them had kids on my mom's side. So I have no first cousins. And my wife, Kelly, she's got. I don't think she really has much touch. She doesn't really know her cousins on her mom's side, and on her dad's side, she has maybe 4 or 5 cousins. And it's a really small knit family. So it's. I look at that huge network and it's like it astonishes me.
Yeah.
And it's got to be cool. But it comes with challenges too, right? Because you got to remember all these people. And
well, I'm similar to you in the way, like, big immediate family, large family, but yeah, cousins and stuff, pretty scarce.
Right.
And you look at these guys over here, and it's like I related to having a lot of friends when I was younger, whether it was high school, college, or 20s. All their friends are their family.
That's pretty cool.
Like you get together with your boys and stuff. You're typically not related, but they do, and they're all related.
Always have to be related.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to everything, This is like your kid's gonna have like a communion or something, and then you got like all of a sudden you're looking at a list and it's like 5,000 people.
That first communion would be crossed off.
So little by little, as we've grown and the generations go further and further down the line, you kind of get a little more intimate because it becomes impossible to like have everyone. That's the one thing. But boy, when we can all get together, it's pretty special.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the one thing is, two things based upon generations, right? So one is, you talked about the Danbury Bar Association. If you ever think about how many people are our age and solo practitioners in the Danbury Bar Association?
Outside of you and I, it'd be hard.
Yeah. And maybe Dan Murtha, who works over. Yeah. I mean, but it's, and that's, that's the one thing that I look at and I go, like, the future, because the future of the profession, where you only have, obviously there's a market.
Yeah.
So, but, helping each other out is even more important when there's only about 3 or 4 that might still be left doing it 25 years down the road. But do you find that generationally that the younger kids that are in the BOA family understand the family camaraderie part?
How young?
Well, I would say, probably maybe I don't know if there is this. I'm assuming the family's so big. I'm sure there are kids
I guess there are.
But what would you say that the age where you start hanging out, that you notice hanging out with your cousins a lot? Like it's your friends, like in college maybe, or that age kind of?
I think
it seems to me like you guys have been together from day one.
Yeah, from birth.
There's no end to it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things they talk about is, as you go down the line, that generationally you see the next generation doesn't appreciate family as much as the other generations may have appreciated it. And you kind of do wonder, with a big family network that in this local, it's so concentrated to a relatively small area, do you still see the younger generation being as involved in family?
I think it's harder to do as it goes down the line because there's more and more people and it's more disjointed. But I think that you want to have that environment. So in my house, dinner is very important. You want to instill that in your kids,
right? That
sense of community, whether it's just me, my wife, and my 3 kids, or if it's my, I don't have a brother or sister. So in that sense, my nucleus is kind of small. My wife has a brother and sister. So
right.
Then you have the grandparents and the brothers and sisters.
Right.
And then with the Portuguese, I think you just diverge further. The Portuguese, when cousins and second cousins are kind of still almost brothers. I think that's culturally where we are, where we're, his father-in-law is technically my cousin, but I call him my uncle out of respect. Right. So it's a cultural thing. And I think I try to instill that in my kids, how important community is on all levels. I want the community of them with the brother and sister to make sure that you guys are always working together and
helping each other out.
Exactly. Everything's not going to be copacetic all the time, but make sure that culture is you guys need to rely on each other. One day mom and dad might not be here. You'll break my heart if you guys aren't working together and collab. Yeah. And my mindset from doing this is I think that we're stronger together. I have certain things I'm good at. Nick, my co-host, there's stuff that I admire about him. And I felt like we're a good partnership because, we can collaborate and help each other out in different ways. And I think when you're doing that as a community, whether it's a law community, a political community, or just in general, you just accomplish more when you're working together. Now, it's not always going to work out, right? And there's always disagreements and issues, but try to work it out. But I think the Portuguese culture is one of, community, trying to make sure that we're always together, doing things together. but there's cons that come out of that too, right? Because sometimes, it's like, oh, you're hanging out with this one more than the other one.
well,
so it's like nothing's perfect, but I do like, I think that it's important that, at least it's important for me and my wife, that we really instill that in our kids that, hey, look out for one. The golden rule is, the most important rule in our household that we try to keep, preaching and practicing. Do for others as you want to do for yourself.
Right.
And I do believe that what you put out there is going to come back. And so far, so good. I mean, in my life, I feel like I've put out a lot of good stuff and I'm getting a lot of that back. So
now, is your wife Portuguese?
She's not. So my wife is, I always say my kid's family tree is going to be easy. My side, Portuguese. Mom's side, talk to her. But it's like Irish, English, French, German, Austrian. I think my father-in-law is like half Austrian, half Irish. Okay. Like earth movers. Like,
so Nick, what are you? Are you?
I'm a mutt.
Yeah.
We're mutts.
Same.
So it's funny because I'm like pretty much a purebred Irish. I'm 100% Irish.
Okay.
And my wife is everything.
Are you sure? Have you done an ancestry report? Because I swore I was only like 2 or 3 things, and that thing came back a laundry list.
A long list.
I think I'm like 7% Asian or something.
So my uncle was big on Ancestry.com, and he did a thing. His side of the family is the only one that I had any questions about because my mom, all of her grandparents had a brogue. So they were straight off the boat from Ireland. So there's really no questions there. my dad, his paternal grandparents had a brogue, and he remembered that. So they were straight off the boat Irish. My grandmother, that's where it gets a little trickier. And turns out that her great grandfather, on her grandparents on her mom's side were actually both from Ireland, and then her dad's side, her great grandmother came from Ireland, her grandmother came from Ireland as well. And then we didn't know. It says that that her grandfather was of Irish descent many years back, but he was born in this country, and then his father was born in this country, as far as we could find out. But I guess I'm pure. I don't know. There's a little bit out there.
Call yourself pure. Yeah, anyone that looks at you can say you're
I got the Reddit with what I have left.
I dare you to do a DNA. Yeah. I dare you. You'll find out.
It's like, there's. I guess it means a lot to me, like the culture and everything, and that's why. Now my wife is like. She thinks she's 50% Irish, and then so she thinks it was like 2 or 3. It's like, if you ever ask her, she says, I'm Irish and German. But then who actually in her family is German, she couldn't tell you.
Yeah, same here.
But she's like, oh, I'm Irish and German. And I like, who's German? She's like, I think my mom. But she has no background on any of it. But she's very blonde. So my kids, thank God, have a lot of her traits and are blonde as well, and with the blue eyes, and they do look German, but they could also be Nordic. You don't know. They could even be Irish. You
don't know.
Some Irish have blonde hair too. So, the culture means a lot. That's why I find it interesting. Is the relationships you have in your life with other folks that may not have as much of a cultural identity with one particular culture or not, and how we view things, how important, because culture to my wife is just not, because you're so many different things, it's not particularly important. Yeah. Whereas if you come from a household where you're predominantly one thing or the other, it's very important. It centers around your household.
That goes for like any of the major cultures, I guess you could say. Portuguese are similar to Italians, right?
Yeah. It makes for interesting conversation and experiments. It's like you married Portuguese, I married outside of Portuguese, and it's like cultures clashing and making it work and then creating your own culture, I love it. I love immersing myself in other cultures and all that stuff.
We're a melting pot here in this country.
Yeah, that's the beauty. Thing. We just this weekend went to New York, impromptu visit, and we went on the High Line.
And
it was awesome. You're like walking through, it's like crowds of people, like artwork, just different cultures, like seeing so many different people. My kids loved it. I was engrossed in it. And I thought, I was like, why don't we do this more? Healthy, walking around, just a great family experience. It's the kind of stuff that you want to like make sure you do a lot with family, friends. What, just out of curiosity, what pushed you into politics? I mean, without getting political,
yeah. No, of course not. No. And it wasn't. And the beautiful thing about that question is it's not political, meaning it wasn't like, one moment where like, oh, this person was president and I got so angry I ran for president. I ran for office. It kind of just evolved, and it was not like one particular thing or one particular moment.
So like make a difference or give of yourself.
That was a big part of it. So I was my entire life, from the time I was maybe 7 or 8 years old till the time I was late into college, I thought I was going to be a baseball player, and I look back and I wasn't that good. I really don't. And my parents were so good to me that they never were like, you're really not that good. You might want to think of something else. They wanted you to dream. Yeah, and that's a good thing. And like, I always tell my son, my daughter that they could be whatever they want, right? And because it's always good to have that dream as long as you're somewhat grounded in reality. And but the problem, it wasn't grounded in reality that I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. I wasn't. So I played baseball in college, and the only place that would take me was Albertus Magnus. It was a D3 school. They didn't have cuts. So they took me on the team. They cut nobody. What college team didn't have cuts? Even my high school team at Brookfield High had cuts, and I somehow made that team. But so I pitched for them. I was a lefty, and so I never thought about what else I wanted to do because I was just so engrossed in like I want to play baseball. I want to play baseball, and I started watching the news a lot. And I started formulating my own opinions on government. And, I started thinking to myself, well, if I eventually realized maybe in my junior year, I was like, I'm really not that as good as I'm not going to make the major leagues. It's clear. I don't throw the ball hard enough. I'm not good enough. And so I really then started to focus on what do I want to do when I graduate. And, I thought about going to law school, and then during that period of time, I started watching the news and then getting more and more apt to like government and politics. And I did think, I said, that's really cool. And I always wanted to make sure that I came back home and ran for office in my hometown because I cared the most about where I lived, where I was from. And as much as I would have loved doing it anywhere, it just doesn't mean as much to me if it's not where I'm from and the people that help raise me. And so I looked at the public service aspect of it, which was really cool, and helping out the people that I grew up with that helped me raise me in a sense. And then also I just enjoyed the policy. I became kind of wonky on policy and politics and things like that, and it kind of grew more and more. And then I graduated college. I was like, well, I want to continue to go to school because I'm clearly not mature enough to have a real job yet. So then I was lucky enough to get into law school, and then throughout law school, law school, as you know, kind of lends more and more to government and politics. And I will say that I went to law school in New York City, so my political stances were probably a little bit different than other people, and I respect all of them. Yeah, that I went to law school with, but the sad part about it, we talked about at the beginning, is we're two different sides of the aisle, and we have this amicable, very positive relationship. I think we see things a lot of the same way, and we know that at the end of the day, we might have a different path to get where we want to go, but we both want the same things. Yeah, and I think we both respect that in one another. And the sad part about where we've come as a country from a political perspective is that sense of respect and decency. And that sense of, well, you look at this differently, and that's okay. That's cool. Yeah. And I just look at it this way, and we can walk apart as friends and be cool with that. That was even 10 years ago when I was in law school. That was a thing. Yeah. Like I remember having like political policy discussions that I don't want to say were heated, but were like in depth with my friends that had very different political viewpoints than I did, and we both walked away smiling, laughing, like total. Thinking exactly the same about the person that we did, when even having more respect in some circumstances. And you just don't see that today. It's even gotten worse in that short time frame, because people look back to way back when, like a generation ago, where there wasn't so much difference between the parties, and there was definitely an amicable relationship with everybody that was in politics, regardless of party affiliation, and say, well, that was different back then. But even 10 years ago, it was different than it is now. And that's sad, because it's just not a good thing. It's not healthy for a community. It's not healthy for the country, having, that different, having that animosity towards another person because they have a different viewpoint than you do. It just, it's not a good thing. And that's one of the reasons I like politics at first, is because of those discussions that you could walk away with still having respect for the other person.
Right.
And you don't see it as much anymore, which is sad.
Yeah, and hopefully, more locally, it should be less and less, adversarial, because, it's small town issues and,
Correct.
community and all that. And I think, and me knowing you and you knowing me, it's like I got involved because I want to be a productive member of the community,
Correct.
do what I can to do, what's best for the people around us. And it's, a shared thing that we have. We're always trying to do good things. When we first started this, it was what he does, right? Raising, awareness and money for something that, his family has to deal with his daughter. And we're always trying to do things that are positive and help other people. And that's what this program is all about, having conversations so that people can learn, or at least empathize, right? And try to build themselves to be better people, or the community to be better. And I think these conversations do that.
You're never going to get to that point if you don't. And, I know with your work with your daughter and CF, it's incredible. And it's incredible what's happened, particularly you talk about the awareness. And then I listened to, Boomer and Geo, and I know Boomer Esiason's son, to this day still struggles with CF. But what he's done for CF and what you're continuing in that legacy of raising awareness and research and funding and all that other stuff is it's literally saving lives. And it's something that if there's anything we can get behind, it's something like that. And so that has to be fascinating looking at it, from your perspective as a parent with a child that has CF today, than what it was when Boomer Esiason, for example, had his son diagnosed. And what was it? Probably 30 years ago at this point.
Excuse me. Yeah, his son is probably, maybe 30-ish right now.
Yeah, and to see him living a life now, he's married. He's got a kid of his own.
Yep.
I know he was coaching football up in New Hampshire. I don't know if he's still doing that, but I mean, a successful person on his own, raising a family now, which is something back when they diagnosed his son.
Yeah, the life expectancy is completely different right now.
Yes, which
probably I'm sure scared the hell out of Boomer.
Right.
That's why he got into it in the first place.
Right.
That's the last thing you want to hear when you have a child born. So,
and
he went full steam ahead in it, and obviously they're at the place they are today with their foundation because of that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so what he did and what you do, and
I just run. I just run and tell people.
I got to join you on something. I'm getting in shape again.
I'm going to do it with him this time. We'll do that together.
The last time we ran was for the restaurant.
Yeah. So a mutual
Brookfield.
friend of ours, Mike.
Yeah.
He was raising money for something different too. It was a challenge that people raise money for different causes and foundations and stuff. Which it actually just passed. It was supposed to be the first week of March, but the guy who kind of came up with the idea and everything, he delayed it a little bit. And he said, you know what, go out and do it on your time. He left the gate open in that sense. So I'm looking to do it at a different time of year, make it a little more special.
What's your next run? What's your next big run?
Next big run, I have a...
What do you get? More importantly, what do you get in Des Moines out to run for? Because I'm going.
I'm trying. I'm going to show up one day on your doorstep in Bethel.
There you go.
I'm going to get Kate's permission. I'm going to say, look, I have him.
She'll push me right out the door. Are you kidding me?
No, I got a couple races coming up. I do trail running. I do fun races. I don't, a 5K down Main Street doesn't really excite me anymore.
Back before kids, my wife and I went down to Disney and did the half marathon.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's
very flat.
It's very flat, and because the minute it was when even when I was in shape, and she's like 13 miles, I was like, there's no way. Because I've done enough running in my life where I know how challenging it is when let's say you do like a 6-mile race, right? And like you get to mile 3 and then you tell yourself, I still got 3 more miles to go. And then, the hard part for me was mentally being like, I'm on mile 1 and I have 12.1 miles to go. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to get through it. But you just prepare yourself. Yeah. My wife's run a marathon. She ran the Hartford Marathon.
Yeah, I was able to raise a little more money this past November. I actually got into the New York City Marathon.
Wow.
And
did you run it this November?
I did.
Congrats. That's awesome.
It was brutal.
That is, I heard, an unbelievably difficult course, though. Like, on top of the fact that it's a marathon, it's like a particularly hard marathon. Like,
people think New York City's flat.
Yeah,
it is not flat.
It's not. No.
And we caught, some people say lucky, some people say unlucky day. It's always in November, which you think is just going to be cold.
Correct.
Which colder weather is actually better for running. This day ended up being hot and humid, mid-70s in November.
Yeah, no.
You're
so
not ready for
mile
that.
1, I'm like, this is awesome.
You feel
mile
great.
3, 5, 10, you're like, why?
Yeah,
you know, like you start to question everything.
Where was what was like the hardest? What mile were you like?
Anything over 20.
Okay.
I've run a 35 mile. I did a 35 mile run and a 40, but it was broken up a little different.
Okay.
You know, a race like this, you're not supposed to stop. You know, I had to walk a little bit. It was difficult.
Yeah. It's a lot of people that have run the marathon, a marathon for the first time will always say that you like inevitably get to a point.
Yeah, there's always a wall
where you like tell yourself, like you start telling yourself, like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. Like you really start convincing yourself. And like they say, once you get past that, you're good. At least mentally, you're good.
You accept, what you're feeling like. I always say that, you can't run, walk. You can't walk, crawl. You can't crawl, well, pull yourself with your arms. You never know.
Just don't accept defeat.
Exactly. Keep going no matter what.
Yeah.
And
what are your joints doing at that?
Oh, they're not feeling good. Oh. No, they're not feeling good. I'm not walking.
It's got to be more the day after, though. It's got to be brutal.
It was bad. No, the end of the race and then the 2 to 4 hours right after it was bad. I had to walk back from Central Park to my hotel, which took a half hour.
Oh. What do you feel like when you wake up the next day?
Just spent, but like relieved, Like I put my body through.
Imagine that. Yeah, it's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got to be. That's always the part. Like, even like again, the most I've ever done is a half, but like the bigger races in my life that I have run, I always have a difficulty like the night before, like lying in bed going, like I'm lying here right now. And in like 12 hours, I'm going to be out trying to run 13 miles. And like thinking to yourself, like, am I really going to be able to do this? I can't imagine the mental preparation the night before.
I always just think about the people I know that have run 100 or 200. Or there's people out there running up close to 300-mile races.
Right.
No sleep. Days and days.
Right.
So you tell yourself,
if they can do that, then why can't I do 26?
I can go for, 4.
How great are the conversations you're having with yourself during the 20-something?
They're terrible. They're terrible.
Are you like, why did I sign up for this? Like, what am I stupid?
With that race particularly, it's so crowded that I'm just trying to take my mind. You say, like, take another step and then another step. Don't think a mile ahead. Don't think 5 miles ahead. So I just try to occupy my mind. It's like a big party. You're at an event running through the streets of New York. It was insane. It was a 26-mile party, and it was overwhelming. Like, I teared up a lot of times, like broke my phone out, and I would video it. I'm like, I can't ever forget this. So that got me through a lot of it. And then it started to quiet down, where the crowds kind of dissipate a little bit, and you start to hurt, and that's when you question it. But it's like back to, I'm going to do it, even if I'm going at the slowest pace possible.
One of the crazier things about me with running and problems that I have is that I've always had bad stomach issues, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And I will start mentally thinking I'm going to get sick. And like that sometimes ruins the race for me because I spend like, all this time thinking like, oh, like I feel nauseous. And I probably don't, but I'm mentally telling myself.
You're trying to psych yourself out.
Yes, that I am. And then you start thinking like, oh, there's all these people around. Like I can't like, you know, I can't start gagging or whatever.
Well,
you know?
It's interesting you mentioned that because one of the things that's stuck in my mind about the race, halfway.
Oh,
God, I don't even know.
Is this appropriate for TV?
Well, Justin, edit this if it comes out bad. But, you know, there was a lady in front of me.
Yeah.
You know, I smelled something pretty disgusting. And I noticed that, you know, she didn't stop to go to the bathroom. She just kept running. And
Good for her.
For the life of me,
Yeah.
I could not lose her. I didn't want to slow down.
Right.
I wanted to pass her. I couldn't pass her. I wanted to slow down, let her like take off, and I slowed down, and I'm like, I'm not gonna make the time I want. I was like stuck near her for miles and miles, and it was.
Is that more common than
in the longer races, in the crazier stuff people do? Yeah, it's common.
It's where it's kind of like almost.
I mean, she's the only one that I saw.
Right, but it's probably definitely not the only person that day that probably had that issue.
She's not the only one. Listen, I saw people passed out, turn blue with paramedics along. I saw multiple times. Like it's no joke, and that happens to people.
If people need to pee during the race, are they just going in their pants?
I think a lot of people do. Yes, I fortunately didn't have to. I have a good grasp on my nutrition and hydration during whatever.
Can you pee while you're running? Is that even possible?
I would.
I never thought I'd actually have a conversation about this in my life that I would be talking about this. But there's a first time for everything.
You know what? I haven't told many people.
They have
now
porta
the world will
potties
know.
all over the course.
Oh,
right?
you can go anywhere. Yeah,
but the problem is, I think some people are so focused on their time.
She was competitive. You can tell
that they didn't.
They don't care.
They don't care. They refuse to take the detour.
Yeah.
To go.
It's like NASCAR. They don't get out of the car.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
There's certain things better left.
They have astronauts. Well, they're also in $1 million cars. I'm sure they have some pretty good suits that they probably recycle it and drink it like in Dune.
But like honestly, that bodily aspect, no matter what, like you just described, or just getting sick, like nauseous and stuff like that. Mentally, like that, I have a difficult time with that.
Well, that's natural. No one wants to do anything in public.
I think too much about it when I more than I probably should. There's no reason. I will not eat before races. Like even if I'm going to run at something at like 11 o'clock, like for example, New Year's Day, Brookfield has a race up at the high school at like 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's like just a 4 mile or whatever. But for me, that's somewhat challenging. For Nick, for you, it's nothing. But for me, it's somewhat challenging. And like that, I will not like New Year's Eve. I always do that race, and New Year's Eve I will not like eat at a party or anything like anything within like 12 hours. Because I mentally want to be like tell myself when I'm running like, why are you telling yourself you're going to get sick? I haven't eaten anything in 12 hours. Like that almost helps me mentally get over that barrier when I'm running sometimes. But
whatever works. I mean, as long as you're staying somewhat safe.
Yeah, and I used to have this ginger gum because when I got diagnosed with celiac, it's because I kept on getting nauseous when I was in law school. So to deal with it, because I kept on happening, I got this ginger gum. It's one of the most disgusting things. It's super spicy. Like you hit it, and it's like whoa. And it's funny because I used to carry it around everywhere. And people used to, hey, can I have a piece of gum?
Like, I don't think you want that.
You don't really know what this gum is. It's ginger gum, and oh no, it sounds good. And they would eat and go, what's this?
Oh, to make your settle your stomach?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it got to the point where, like again, mentally for me, I don't think it did anything for my stomach. But if I had it in my mouth, I thought it was doing something.
The placebo effect.
Yes, it was a placebo type of thing. So for a while, I would carry it with me when I would run in races and start popping it in, thinking if I started feeling sick or whatever. Again, I don't think it did a thing, but I was telling myself that it was a placebo type of thing. Yeah.
So. I'd imagine the mindset that you have to like run and not want to stop to use the restroom. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
I would have, on any of the races I did, I would really have to go bad. Luckily, knock on wood, I've been okay.
We talk about the stress and like balancing everything, and we started out the podcast. That's a lot of what the podcast is about. Now, I've been doing more and more running, and I did a lot of running, as I said before. Kids and everything. The people always talk about some of the best ideas I get are when I'm running, but I've never had, you run a lot. I've never had that. Like I've never been able to contemplate something and been like, figure out this really complex issue where people will swear they're able to do it. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but
yes and no. I've had some very highs and some very lows, obviously, while running. The effect that it gives, the endorphins that flow through you.
That is true, because after I run, I always feel better. Like, I feel great.
Runner's high.
Yeah, the runner's high.
Yeah.
But specifically, I think it's more like solitude, if you think about that. I know a lot of people, and I listen to a lot of famous people, they run because they like the solitude. It's like the one part of their day that they can get out and have some quiet to themselves,
right?
And think and, formulate ideas and stuff. So when I heard that, I'm like, that makes sense, because I do that a little bit too, nothing major. But if you think about it, you get up, you go for a run, the rest of the day you're typically around people, whether it's work or family. So when else do you really have the time to formulate ideas?
Or you're conscious.
Are you going to go to the office and say, all right, 15-minute break, let me just sit on the couch and meditate?
That's true.
You're not setting aside that time. So the running is just, the vehicle to get to that.
It's a form of meditation in a way.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I feel like I have my best thoughts when I'm like waking up from sleep or I'm in the shower. I think that's for me, my most creative times. But when you said meditation, I feel like things that help me with my anxiety and my stress are where I can be really present. Like and I don't do this, but like, I'm trying to think of something. All right, mountain climbing. If you were mountain climbing, which I don't do,
right?
I mean, you have to be present, right?
Right. Of course.
I mean, because your life is on the line. I feel like I love golfing, and I think one of the reasons I love to golf is because when you're golfing, for the most part, except when you're in your car texting a client or emailing, when you're actually playing the game of golf, you have to be present. Like it requires you to be right there. I feel like when I ran, and I do miss that about running, and I feel like I should do it again, but running is one of those things that's so hard to get into. When you're in the habit of running, it's easy and it's unbelievable. But to get into the habit of running, I feel is like one of the hardest things to do. But I always felt like running was a meditation for me. I always would either think of nothing, like daydream, or like fantasize, not like, in any weird way, but like just have like that, like you said, that mindless, but almost like you could just be present. Like you're not thinking really about anything important, right? Your mind's racing, almost like a meditation where the meditation's more like a clearing of the mind. It's like the opposite, but almost doing the same thing. At least for me, that's...
Yeah. The thoughts that go through your head when you're running are weird.
Very weird.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's not, and that's what I was saying of, like, I've never resolved a big problem at the office when running. Where people, there's a misnomer. I think it's a misnomer that it's like, oh wow, the best ideas I get, or it's not.
Yeah, it's not like that.
No,
that's kind of it's taken out of context.
It's, as you said, and as Steve, you described it the best of. It's just like kind of like stuff. It's not. It's just like endless.
You can clear your head. When you're running, your body's doing the work.
Right.
Your mind is a little bit dependent on kind of what you're doing. But if you're on the track, you can almost close your eyes for multiple times while you're running, and you'll be fine. So your focus can be clearly here.
Right.
Your body's just doing the work.
Right. Yeah. And I find that when I start thinking about things that are like, thinking out my day, for example, if I'm running in the morning, I'm thinking about, all right, today I got to do A, B, C, and D. That I will try to stop myself from doing that. My mind will be like, no, I can't. I don't want to think about that right now. It's bad enough that I'm running, and I want to get this over with. I don't want to be thinking about stressing myself out about what else I have to do during the day. But it's when you said present, like during stress and like being present, like that's one hard thing that I have is when I'm in a stressful situation at the office or something's going on, like I have this urge, like I got to be there. I have to, even though I'm sitting at my office computer and I might not be able to do anything about whatever situation I'm stressed out about. I have this like always this urge to like be there at the office, like doing something about this issue, even though there's nothing I really can do. When you said being present during, that's like I always have that type of urge. I don't know why.
I think it's like the the problem solving, like as a lawyer, sometimes you want to like solve the issue. Like this can't persist. Like I can fix this.
Yeah. And it's like, even though there's nothing I might be able to do, I have to be there sitting there, like staring at my computer for no reason.
Yeah.
Cause it's like a mental.
You got to figure out sometimes just to let things go. It's like, and I think having conversations, like I'm sure like when I have really big problems, I talk about it with my dad. Like I value his opinion, my wife, colleagues. And then you start to like realize, like, stop worrying about it. It's because you can't do it. You can't do anything about it. Why worry about it? It's like you've already processed it and then try to move on and think of other things to do. When I deal with stress, I have weight issues, and I think I emotionally eat as well. It's like that's how I'm like mitigating my stress, which then causes more stress because I'm like, oh man, I'm fat, I'm unhealthy, I don't like the way, it's like a negative feedback loop. But then you have moments where you're good. Like, what do you think you're replacing the food with
right now?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think a lot of it is motivation right now. I think I'm so motivated to get back into a good place from a health perspective that I just like every time there's a certain like urge, like I want to eat carbs, or I don't want to run today. That I'm just, it's honestly a motivation thing. If I can't say no to that. I can't get back to the place I was before. And for the past 3 months, it's worked. I don't know how. Hopefully, it will continue.
I have a theory because like Nick's an athlete and he stays on task and he has a passion for training and all that stuff, and I think that helps him to maintain what he has, which is an incredible physique. Look at the guy. I mean, I think sometimes, like, and I know you were an athlete, I'm an athlete,
right?
It's like, and he does this well. He does a marathon, or he'll do this or that. And I feel like I'm most successful when I'm doing that too. It's like we spoke briefly for Lent. I gave up carbs, so I'm not really a keto. It's not like an Atkins. It was like a stay away from bread, processed foods, like
pastas.
Pasta, sugar,
right.
And it works. And it's like when I have these goals, or I'm going to train for this or this, that's when I'm the healthiest. Is like when I have the structure and the motivation, and then just doing it. Same thing with our podcast. It's like consistency, like just do it. It's like the gym, just show up. I show up at my gym, and it's like sometimes my workouts are literally hilarious. Like there's a WOD, so I do CrossFit, there's a WOD, and it's like the trainers there know, like, Steven's not going to do the WOD, he's going to do his WOD, you know what I mean? It's like, if it's burpees, I'm not doing a burpee, I'm doing a push-up. But like when I'm showing up and I'm doing it and I'm staying like organized and consistent and structured, then I'm successful.
Right.
It's like, and you find weird ways to figure out how to do it. It's like, it's funny how you ebb and flow, and it's always like certain reasons why. And same thing, there's triggers. And then once you get in that loop where you're like, whatever, like I'm going to
It can't be informal for me. Like to your point, like I think Nick, you just informally live life in a pretty healthy manner. And I've learned, at least, since getting married and kids and the lifestyle that, we live, I have to be like formally focused on being healthy. Like have a plan of I'm on this diet and I'm running every day or whatever. And I'm in that mindset, because it's some people like yourself. I think you've built it into your life where it's habitual. You don't even really think much of it. It's okay. I'm going to get up and run today. I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to go to Wendy's. I've gotten myself to a point where I have to be telling myself that I'm doing this now, because if I don't, it's just going to go. I can't informally.
Yeah.
I just can't be like, oh, I'm kind of on a diet. I'm kind of.
And then you get to your goal, and then it's like
it's not. I have to. I can't kind of anything when it comes down to this health stuff, because if I kind of am, I'm totally not.
Yeah.
And it's just too easy for me to be like. That's kind of why I do keto, is because there's very little, from what I understand about it, because I don't know all about that. There's very little room for like cheating on it. Like, because my understanding is if you cheat on it, then you kind of get yourself out of ketosis, which is supposedly the whole reason why you go on keto. So I go on it because it's so strict that there's no like, oh, I'll just have some chocolate cake today.
Right.
And tomorrow I'll hop right back on. And the problem is that I know myself, I won't.
You got to build in a cheat day, though, right, Nick? We need a cheat day for him.
I got to talk to you about that. Though.
Yeah. You can always have a cheat day. I mean, it comes
even
down.
On keto, though?
Not really.
See, that's the thing.
I mean, every fad.
You don't cycle off keto every once in a while, though? You have?
Me?
No, I'm...
Are you on? You're not on keto, are you, or no?
No.
Okay.
No,
but I'm saying if you do something like that, you're never gonna have bread ever again. Like, well, you're gluten free.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's gluten free breads and stuff like that, which are actually worse for you because they put all this crap in it. Yeah.
The problem with any diet, or
it's temporary.
It's not sustainable. So.
This is not gonna last forever.
I've gone through many trials and errors with everything. Like I thought I was a vegan for a long time, and now I'm more of a carnivore. So you have to find something sustainable. You got to find something that you enjoy, because if you don't, you're just not going to stick to it. And you have to have a reason. You got to have a why. Like why do you want to eat healthy every day? Why do you want to run? Why do you know?
Right.
I want his beard to see my kids grow.
Well, that was one of the things that got me. I knew throughout the campaign that I was gaining a lot of weight and I had to cut back, and I knew it. It was unhealthy. So I always had it in my mindset that after the campaign, I'm going to do it. But then, as you know, campaign season is terrible in terms of timing, because once November 8th is election day, let's say, what's immediately after November 8th?
All the holidays.
Thanksgiving. And then what's immediately after Thanksgiving? Christmas. And then what's immediately after that? New Year's. So, once you campaign, it's not like you can be like, all right, November 9th, I'm on my diet, because it's like, what's the point? 2 weeks later, I'm going to be stuffing myself with turkey and mashed potatoes in pumpkin pie.
And you deserve it after a long campaign.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you feel like. So, I mean, I had a good 2-month hiatus where I was shoving myself with every food in the world. But, I forget. I guess I lost my point. But anyway, So anyway, no. So I was going to say, the one of the moments, and you said I want to be alive to see my kids. One of the moments that I finally had that realization after the holidays, I gotta go on a diet. My son was playing Duck Duck Goose in my in-laws' house, and I couldn't properly sit down, crouch style, sitting. I was
crisscross applesauce,
almost I was lying down because I just could not And my 65-year-old father-in-law was sitting like this, and meanwhile here's a 35 lying on the side. And I finally at that point I said, this is not right. I cannot.
Enough is enough. That's me with putting the shoes on or not being able to play outside with the kids. But we could talk about this all day, and we could have this conversation going forever. I don't want to keep you forever, and time flies. I looked at the phone. Time really does fly when you're having these conversations. But Nick, we always ask our guests, right? What do we end with?
We can't leave without asking. So obviously, we have the Boa Life podcast.
Yes.
You know what Boa means by any chance? Did you even tell him?
No. Well, the good life, the Boa. Boa is good in Portuguese.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I didn't know that was. I didn't know Boa was good. I think the good life. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to live the good life, and with every guest, we want to know if they're living the good life, and if so, how they doing it.
Okay.
So what does the Boa life mean to you?
The good life to me, it's very family centered, because I think that with what we do, we don't get enough family time. And so the good life to me is being able to spend time away from the office, spend time with your kids. I am outside of just family stuff. It's, playing sports. My son's into T-ball now. So coaching. And then we just talked about at the beginning with our sports teams. I love pro football, NFL football. I'm a huge Giant fan, and living the good life to me is a Sunday where I spend with my kids and my wife, and then at 1:00 watching the Giants beat up on the Cowboys.
This is eerie because the only jersey that my kids can't have any team jersey they want, except at Miles. There's no football team jersey but the Cowboys.
Yeah, so I would not let my son walk in the house with the Cowboys jersey. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry. I can't. But I'd say the good life is summed up in that. It's a Sunday spent with my family, where I'm able to get out of the office and out of campaigning for a weekend and sitting down at 1 o'clock with my son and watching the Giants beat up on the Cowboys, I would say that's probably
Love it.
bow of life for me.
So I know Nick likes the sound of that.
Love it.
Hey, you win some, you lose some. Thank you very much.
It was a great time, gentlemen.
Fantastic.
Thank you. There was a lot of fun. Time flies.
We're not going to be another year without releasing an
I'm
episode.
going to watch them, so you better not
Please.
be.
Nope.
I'm going to hold you to that.
We got great episodes coming up. We promise. Sayonara.
Bye, everybody.